I think what has helped me going and is the vision, right? So I think having a very clear purpose of why am I doing what I'm doing, right? What is my personal why? Because honestly, there will be moments when you just want to pack your bags and go, right? Like you'd rather run away from the problem than face it. And that's happened to me a lot of times. And then I have to tell myself, no, this is the reason why I'm doing it, right?
Okay.
So being very clear about why you're doing what you're doing.
Hello and welcome to the Success with Savita podcast, where we share hot tips on how to do life and business without losing your mind. I'm your host, Savita Nanjappa, entrepreneur, high-achieving 9-to-5er turned transformational success coach, helping you create a wildly successful business. Come hang out with me and other fabulous humans like you every week for stories and chats packed with a healthy dose of tips, resources, how-tos, and real talk. Side effects may include a happier and more confident you with each passing day. Welcome to the Success with Savita podcast, and my guest today is the founder and CEO of Kool Kanya, Vanshika Goenka. Kool Kanya is a community of women helping other women navigate their careers. Whether you are a freelance writer or a mother looking for work after a maternity break, a corporate employee, or simply looking for your life purpose, Kool Kanya helps women create careers that they love. In 2017, when Vanshika was doing market research for a sanitary pad company, she found that it was a room full of men discussing how to design a better sanitary pad, a product that was only used by women. It hit her then that if places designing feminine products also do not have women, what would be the case in seemingly male dominated professions? She started digging into the skewed gender ratio in the Indian workplace and surveyed over 300 Indian women, discussed their pain points on their career paths. What she discovered was that while most women had similar journeys, they still found themselves alone while navigating their careers. As such, she was determined to start a community of women who help each other create the careers they love, and hence Kool Kanya was born. I have personally had the opportunity to witness the launch of Kool Kanya in December 2019 and then watch this young brand and platform grow through COVID, through the lockdown, to what it is today, a go-to place for young career women in India. The passion, the vision, the energy, and the team behind this brand is what makes Kool Kanya such a great place to be. In our conversation today, Vanshika shares with us what it takes to start and grow a community platform like Kool Kanya. Hi, Vanshika. Welcome to the Success with Savita podcast. And thank you so very much for making the time for this conversation today. I deeply appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to this conversation with you. So, welcome to the show.
Hi, Savita. Thank you for having me. Really looking forward to diving into all that's planned ahead and talking to you.
Yeah, I'm excited about this conversation. And so, first, I want to start by congratulating you on building this platform and to the success of Kool Kanya. I know that when you started, it was 2019, I think December, right?
Yeah.
Is when you launched. And that's when I actually met you. And then, of course, we dove right into the pandemic 2-3 months later. But I mean, with the way Kool Kanya has grown, I think you guys have done such a commendable job. So congratulations on that. And with that, actually, I'll dive straight into the question on. So tell me the journey so far, and how did you come up with this idea for Kool Kanya?
First of all, Savita, you're right. It's been quite a journey. I think if I just look back at even like 2020 and 2019, it's been such a roller coaster, but at the end of it, such a rewarding journey, and there's so much more to do. I think when you asked me the question of where did the idea of Kool Kanya come about, I think honestly, if I look back and I've reflected on this question a lot, I think it started out when I was really young. I don't have maybe 5 or 6, and growing up in a Marwari family like I have, right, where there was an undercurrent of girls probably not being equal to their male counterpart. There were a lot of meetups or holidays or celebrations like Diwali, Holi, where I would overhear the conversation with my father that you only have two daughters, who will work ahead, who will handle the business ahead.
Mm.
And maybe as a 5-year old, I would just think to myself that why are they asking these questions? Why have they dismissed me or my sister already?
Mm.
And I think somewhere, although I didn't say much at that point, those
Mhm.
conversations stayed with me until I sort of started working. And even in high school, I was very passionate about helping the girl child or educating the girl child. But that was more from the perspective of working for an NGO or going to the areas in the Kamati Pura region.
Mm.
But I think it was once I started working after graduating from Brown with the company that was working and creating a sanitary pad napkin, that
Mm.
I realized that 70% of decision makers in households, or actually even a larger percentage, are women. Right. But on
Yeah.
the other side, there are men who are creating these products. Like even when I was working with the sanitary pad company, we were looking at redesigning the sanitary pad, and there were only men in that room, and I was the only woman. How in the world would a man decide how a sanitary pad should feel or look?
Yeah.
What is comfort, right? So that's really where, I started diving into this, that why aren't there enough women in the workforce?
Mm. It's crazy. I still can't imagine what that being in that room felt like. But I mean, from there to Kool Kanya, it's been such an interesting journey, right? So go on. And then from there, from having worked with this company, at what point did you transition into starting
So
this?
I started looking into the ratio and why aren't there enough women in the workforce. That led to a lot of research, both
Mm.
quantitative and qualitative. When I talk about qualitative research, it was a lot of going to people's households, having a conversation with them,
Mm.
going to Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad. I remember so many conversations. One where, I was talking to someone who worked in a consulting company earlier and had stopped working. And one day her 2-year-old son came up to her and was just like, Mom, jaise aapko pocket money milta hai, waise hi mujhe pocket money milta hai. Right?
Okay.
So there've been so many incidents where I realized that
Yeah.
I think working for a woman is more than just income, is also a way of empowering herself, and is also to some extent her form of forming her own identity.
Mm. Yes.
So I think there were so many of those conversations where you could see a stark difference between women who are currently working and the younger generation, their aspirations, and
Mm.
they had their own challenges of feeling lost and confused and dealing with low confidence issues and low self-esteem issues and imposter syndrome. And then you had women who'd gone through all these life changes, whereas it was marriage or having a child, and they had their own concerns, and they were dealing with not knowing who they are anymore.
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting research, and I think post that, even after the research, both qualitative and quantitative, I think it took a lot of time to solve in terms of what shape or form the product would be.
Okay.
Right? We actually went from a complete corporate lens to a complete freelancer platform to coming to somewhere in the middle today.
Okay.
So in that sense, it's been a lot of iteration and a lot of figuring what works and what doesn't.
True. It is true for any business, right? Like what you think when you start, and then it takes, there are those changes that you make. And it's so interesting that you share about this experience about women having life changes, because that was me at one point, because I quit my job when I had a baby and I wanted to start something of my own. But
Yeah.
that period between starting something of my own, starting my own business, and having this job was a period when I actually felt like I didn't have an identity. You always introduce yourself, right? Saying, hey, I'm so and so, and I work for so and so company. And, you probably give out your role or whatever. And then suddenly I would go to the park with my kid, and people would ask what you do. And I didn't know what the answer was. I mean, I didn't have obviously I hadn't thought it through. So I would say nothing, right? I do nothing, but
Yeah.
actually I wasn't doing anything. So it's a big loss of identity. And I'm so glad you brought that up. And, through Kool Kanya, there is that work happening where you're supporting women who are also having taken a break coming back to the workplace. So this was the prep that you put in to start this platform. But when you actually decided to say, okay, I'm doing this, and, you thought of the name, you started assembling a team, what was the most challenging thing about putting this platform or getting it off the ground?
I think there have been so many challenges, right? One in itself was assembling the team.
Mm,
Because so there are two parts of this, right? When I think of something like Kool Kanya, you're starting out, you don't have a physical product at that point, right?
right.
And to sell your idea to someone in itself is challenging, because that also means them leaving their job, or them leaving, a job that's well paying or with a reputed company to try to join you. So you really have to sell your vision to them and what you're trying to do.
Right.
I think the second part of this was, which when I reflect back was also a mistake. But when I started out, I was really hyper focused on the tech aspect of things, because that was something that is not my strength.
Okay.
Right. So I do not come from a tech background. So I was like, oh, I need to build this tech product. It needs to have AI and ML and needs to be all of these things, right?
Okay.
That I made a simple problem a lot more complicated at that point than it had to be, right? So
Okay.
I think at that point, I would say the most challenging part was forming the team, the technical aspects of building the platform, as well as I think, nailing the exact problem. Because when you talk about women, there's so many aspects, right? Because even
Right.
youngsters have problems and older people. Like, so what is that exact problem statement?
Mm.
I think just, pinning that down and nailing that was also challenging when I was getting started.
Okay, awesome that you should bring up this thing about the problem, because, yeah, it can be vast. And when we say empowering women, it's a very big area, and that you've been able to like niche down. So from launching in 2019 to now, what really has been a key contributor to growing the community, considering that it was also, you got hit with COVID as well, so unexpected?
Yeah. So I think one of the key areas of growing the community is reframing, making sure that we were addressing the problem in multiple ways, right? So first thing, women are lost in their careers and want to build a career that they love, right? So how is the content contributing to that? How is the community supporting that growth, right? Both in terms of the prompts you're putting out, both in terms of the activities you're doing on the community, and both in terms of how you're motivating the user to come back.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it was largely what contributed to the growth was the role the Kool Kanya content played, as well as going with the changes, right? So with COVID, there were a lot of changes that suddenly came about, which in the beginning, honestly, it was hard to go with. There was a lot of resistance even from our end.
Yeah.
So going with those changes, accepting those changes, and using those changes to our benefit.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. Stay tuned as we take a quick break, and we'll see you on the other side of the show. So, was it a massive transition? Because you had plan A, and then COVID happened. So did you have a lot of change that you had to do, or you were able to apply everything that you had planned?
So there were quite a few changes.
Okay.
One was events. We were looking at doing a big in-person event last year. So we had almost booked the place, and we were getting speakers, and suddenly COVID hit, and we didn't know. There was so much uncertainty that how long will COVID last for. So we'd hired a team for that event, and then letting go of people for making those hard decisions.
Okay.
There was one form of change. A second form of change was actually we launched our community officially in March.
Right.
So we had to launch it during COVID, which in itself is also a blessing in disguise, because after COVID, there were a lot more women online than they had. So I mean, but on the other hand, it was, making sure product launch happening not in person for a team that had never worked remotely was challenging in the beginning. So,
Yeah.
so just getting accustomed to all of that.
Yeah, I think the events would have also been, it would have hit hard, right? So
Yes.
here you are, you've transitioned from, having been in the corporate world to now starting your own, starting this community, turning entrepreneur, right? And you've also had to face challenges. How have you personally handled this transition, right? Is there some tips that you can share about what has helped you keep going during this transition?
I think what has helped me going and is the vision, right? So I
Mm,
think having a very clear purpose of why am I doing what I'm doing, right? What is my personal why? Because honestly, there will be moments when you just want to pack your bags and go, right?
yeah.
Like you'd rather run away from the problem than face it. And that's happened to me a lot of times. And then I have to tell myself, no, this is the reason why I'm doing it, right?
Okay.
So being very clear about why you're doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the second part of this was also, I think, building my own confidence. Right, when you're working in a job, the mentality is very different because you're going to get a paycheck at the end of the month either way.
Yeah.
Right here, and so your ownership is only the line of work that you've taken up, not
Yeah.
anything beyond that. Here, but when you're running your own business, you're eating, sleeping, breathing what you're building.
Yeah.
Right. So in the end, no one is as responsible as you are. Or no one, I mean, tomorrow I have to think about how I'm going to pay salaries, not how I'm only going to be paid, right?
Mm,
So it was that whole shift in mentality. And I think the biggest challenge for me personally, when I look at it on a personal level, is how am I building my own confidence, right? Because, earlier I was like, I need to be more confident. I need to be more confident. And I
mm,
realized over time that confidence is built every time I step out of my comfort zone. So I need to make sure I'm stepping out of my comfort zone. And what am I doing? So I think reflecting back, I as an individual have grown a lot from the day I personally started. And I think allowing and also being graceful with myself that it's okay. I've tried today, I've learned something. And I think another thing that has really helped me as an entrepreneur is the way I look at failure. Now I don't look at failure as anymore as, a negative thing. In fact, I take it and I'm like, what has this taught me? So I look at it as failing forward, right? Because, when you fail, you've actually learned something in the process. So you're 5 steps ahead of where you were when you started out. So I think really of, flipping that and seeing failure very differently.
Uh, it's really interesting that you bring up about failure, right? Because one of the values for Kool Kanya is fail forward. I remember reading this because, it was in that little card that I got.
Yeah.
That is one of the values. And it's really amazing that you actually embody that. Often, you put down these values, which a lot of companies do that, right? You have these values, but is the the CEO of this company actually embodying that? And it's really, it's nice that you actually embody that. And it's interesting that you share about failure, because actually my next question is about, for anyone who wants to create a community platform, what are things they should keep in mind so they're off to a good start versus, like going back and forth and maybe having some setbacks?
So I think the first thing in to keep in mind for yourself when you're starting out your business is why you're doing what you're doing. I think your purpose, you have to be very, very clear about why you are doing what you're doing. And I think the second thing is, like I said, don't be afraid of failure. See what you're learning from failure. And the third thing I would say is a lesson that I've learned, and I wish I'd applied it when I was starting out, is make sure that you have a very clear problem statement of what you're solving, and make sure you try solving it in a cheap way. Now, what I mean by this is if you want to, say, for example, build a community, first try to build it on a platform that's ready-made, like Facebook, right? And try to see if that is working for you before trying to build it with, a new tech platform, for example, like, building everything from scratch. And so making sure that you have an MVP, that's a minimum viable product in place, right?
Yeah.
The another thing that I would say is if you're starting your business, make sure you've spoken to your user set, right? Speak to them multiple times, go to them with variations of your product, get feedback. Because the only real way of actually testing your hypotheses or testing your product is by going to the users. And obviously their behavior will tell you more than, how they use the product will tell you a lot more than just their responses. And I think the last thing that I would say is, don't be afraid of pursuing an unexpected path or a path that's not been treaded before. Right. So don't be afraid of treading your own path, essentially, because maybe that's what it is, that you're doing something different. So don't shoot yourself down that no one's done it in the past. So yeah, I think these are a couple of things that I wish someone had told me before.
Right. Brilliant tips on that. Actually, my next question was going to be your advice for young women who are starting their business, but I think you covered that. So I'm going to actually ask you this, since it's a career platform. Kool Kanya is for career women. What have you seen as major gaps still to be addressed? Because we are talking today about breaking the glass ceiling. Everybody, I recently read the study where 39% of women in senior management are women in senior management. But what are you seeing with the work that you're doing in this space? Are some gaps that are still that still need to be fixed broadly?
I think one gap is of mentoring, right? Because there are not enough women leaders. Mentoring becomes a huge gap between both, like, the customer set, so making sure that there is mentoring that exists, because there aren't enough mentors, female mentors, right? Enough role models. I think the second gap is that of self-esteem. A lot of women actually have very low self-esteem and very low confidence. And the third thing, I think, which is sort of related to confidence also, is the imposter syndrome, that I've not done this, or, but haan, theek hai, thoda sa hai, zyada nahi hai, thoda, and you sort of see a lot of this, both self-esteem, imposter syndrome, play out in things even as basic as a resume, where that, if a man is 70% or 50% prepared for a job, he will still apply. But a woman who is maybe 70% prepared for a job, she won't apply because she's not 100% prepared for a job. Yeah. So I think these are a couple of things that really play out, and I think they affect you. You see this more with women than you see it with men.
Absolutely. I feel like I resonate with everything that you share. And women are so, we always downplay our achievements, right? And so my next question, and before I let you go, of course, is what's next? You've shared some brilliant points so far. What's next for Kool Kanya? What's the journey?
So I think the journey is, there are a lot of things coming up, specifically in the space of more profession-specific mentoring. So, for example, we have something called groups as a feature that's coming up, which is for profession specific. So, for example, if you're looking at content-specific groups where, content writers can come on board, they'll have access to resources, access to mentors, access to events for them, as well as access to career enablers. What I mean by that is, things like that will help them enable their career, whether that's, working at a discounted rate in a co-working space, or getting something as a travel discount if they have to travel for work, right? So we're trying to focus on the aspect of access, the aspect of personal development. So a lot more to do with self-esteem, mental health issues that we've seen that come up, as well as enablers, right?
Okay.
So career enablers, like I mentioned to you.
Yeah.
Getting access to better deals, getting access to discount cards. So that's something really that we're working up for in the next couple of months.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I think Kool Kanya has so much. You guys have already packed in a lot, and I feel like you guys have so much more to do. And what about if there's a mantra that I may ask you? Maybe I'm putting you on the spot here. Is there a mantra that you live by personally?
Progress over perfection.
I love it.
That's a mantra I live by, because I have I'm such a type A person. When it's perfect hona chahiye, and then I've really realized is that perfection is an illusion, right? What is perfection? So I always tell myself, progress. We have to progress. That's more important. Perfection will keep changing. The definition just keeps changing. Let's strive for progress. Let's strive to learn more.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it because I've been, this is something that in coaching, right? We talk about this, like get it done and course correct. Like don't wait. There's never going to be the right moment or it's never going to be perfect. So I love this mantra. On that note, people should find you on Kool Kanya. What's the, like, how do they join Kool Kanya? What's the access? How do they get in touch?
So, to obviously, you can follow us on Instagram, which is cool_Kanya. You can also see us on, you can also join the community on www.coolkanya.com. All you have to do is sign in, and then you'll get access to the events as well as the community events that
Awesome.
happen.
Okay. Awesome, Vanshika. This has been such a great conversation, and I feel like you're so on point and you have such clarity. So I wish you and Kool Kanya a fabulous number of years ahead, but all the very best. And I will be following your journey. And I'm so excited we got to have this conversation. I think you have so much value to share, and I look forward to staying connected.
Thank you, Savita. Thank you so much. Lovely speaking to you, and look forward to being connected.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this episode and you want more, you can go to the show notes on my website, which is successwithsavita.com/podcast. If you like what you've heard so far, I would be grateful to you if you could leave me a 5-star review, subscribe to this podcast, and share with a friend who may find this useful. You can also follow me on my Instagram at Success with Savita and DM me any questions you may have, and I will be happy to answer them for you. Until the next episode, believe in yourself and all the best to your success.